So where better to go for the launch of the new Ducati Monster 821 than the home of Ducati themselves. We're in a valley just outside Bologna, which is where Ducatis are made. I've got my stupid Nicky Hayden spec Ducati Oakley sunnies on. The sun's out, let's go out and take a ride and see what it's like. So now that we've finished the riding phase of the launch, I thought it would be a great chance to take a Monster, stick it on a paddock stand and talk you through the key points to this new bike. One of the great things about the Monster is it's still essentially a parts bin special. The really cool thing about the 2014 versions is that the parts bins have got so much better than they used to be. So the first thing to mention is this tank. At 17.5 litres, it's 4 litres bigger than the 796 tank. Next up is the seat. Ducati worked quite hard to increase the comfort and the size and space for your ass, for you and your pillion on this bike over the 796. So there's a bigger seat for you and a bigger seat for your pillion. What's quite cool, I think, that Ducati have done, much like some of the other manufacturers, Kawasaki and KTM for example, is they haven't just left a mess underneath this seat cowl for the pillion seat cover. Even without this cowl on, it's still quite a pretty looking back end. The exhaust looks like it's been lifted straight off a Diavel. Those slash cut over and under pipes at the back, and the lovely sweeping sections up the front. It's a really pretty thing. It sounds fantastic as well. Something else that I was really pleased to find today, especially when it was lashing with rain, is the little rubber covers over the foot pegs. Ducati typically steal foot pegs from the superbike end of their model range. And what that means is you get these metal pegs, which when it's raining and you've got a set of road boots on, they're absolutely useless. The liquid-cooled 821cc V-twin has been pinched straight from the Hypermotard, which is a good thing. The differences between this and the 1200 version is the lack of oil cooler. What one of the engineers told me is this bike doesn't need to rev as high to produce as much power, so there's no need to cool the oil on it. What that means visually is we've lost the oil cooler at the front, so the bike, the profile looks narrow, it doesn't look as clunky, and we've lost that little kind of bikini fairing part that goes down the bottom on the 1200. Sticking with the engine, Ducati have reprofiled the throttle bodies. The ride-by-wire throttle has been redesigned as well, so everything feels smoother. What I found today was that second gear round town speeds, they're nothing like they used to be on a Ducati. You don't have to trail the clutch, you don't have to tap loads of revs in to keep the thing from vibing your teeth out. It's a really, really smooth ride. That's not to say that this bike's gutless. Get it singing in the mid-range and push through up into the top end and it'll happily crack along. 112 horsepower in a 200 kilo bike is never going to be slow. What you might be able to spot in some of the onboard footage from today, especially when it was raining, is I knocked the bike back to urban mode. What that means is loads of traction control, loads of ABS, and the power is capped at 75 horsepower. If you're used to riding multi-mode modern bikes, sports bikes, super nakeds, all that kind of stuff, you'll be quite used to flitting between one power map and another, much as I am. The kind of old school riders out there and the diehards among us all will be moaning about the fact that there's no suspension adjusters on this bike. You can't crack the spanners out and fix bits and pieces to make the bike feel your own. But what it loses in that respect, I think it more than makes up for by way of being able to flick from 75 horsepower when it's lashing with rain back up to the full power kind of sharp end 112 horsepower mode. So one point that Ducati were keen for us to get across is the appeal that this bike should have to the female market, what with the standard seat height being able to drop as low as 785 mils, but you can adjust that same seat back up to 810 mils. If you're even shorter than that, you can buy a lower seat from the accessory pack. If you're even taller than that, you can buy a taller seat from the accessory pack. One thing that Ducati aren't doing badly at the minute, if you look across the range, Diavel, 899 Panigale, the big Panigale, Hypermotard, Multistrada, they all come with fantastic brakes, and the Monster 821 is no exception. Radial mount, Brembo monoblock brakes at the front, sintered pads, multi-mode ABS, all as standard, all fantastic. Another thing that you might notice with this Monster is the battery, which is mounted in the middle of the swing arm down the back. The swing arm, it's interesting to note, is a standard double-sided gravity cast aluminium swing arm rather than the typical single-sided swing arm that you might be used to. What that shorter wheelbase does is it helps with that fantastic feeling of being able to flick from side to side, in town, out of town, slow corners, fast corners. It's really, really good fun to throw this bike about. Surrounding those Panigale style wheels are the new Pirelli Diablo Rosso 2s, developed specifically for the Monster 821. They complement the rest of the bike perfectly. They work well with the suspension, they work well with the brakes, they work well with all of the riding modes. I didn't come here looking to compare the Monster to other bikes in the Ducati range. I came here thinking about bikes like the Triumph Street Triple and the Yamaha MT-09. After spending a full day riding this bike, I'm convinced that it's at least as good as them. The one key point to note is just the price point. It's a little bit rich at 8,995 for this version and a couple of £100 less for the dark version. When you compare that point to the MT-09 and the Street Triple, some people aren't going to want to spend that extra money to get a bike that's just as good as the cheaper bikes. So we're supposed to be talking about this beautiful bike, but there is a massive dog over there. People in the UK sometimes struggle to fully understand what it means to be part of that Ducati family. And you've only got to spend one day in a city like Bologna to understand that regardless of whether your Ducati is new, old, shiny, smashed up, if you've got a Ducati, you're in the Ducatisti. Make sure you check back in with the Bike World team in a couple of weeks' time when Superbike magazine depot Chris Northover will be back out at Misano for World Ducati Week. That's when you'll get a real chance to understand what I'm waffling on about when I say Ducati family and Ducatisti. It's an absolutely fantastic party. Come back and check it out.